for some pure fucking metal!
For my heart, forever lost in this hell. The violence that I'm throwing the bomb. Killing me.
Melodic death metal is one of my favorite subgenres of metal. This is the genre that I credit for helping me develop a taste for harsh vocals and heavy rock music. Turns out, all I needed was an extremely melodic backdrop to appreciate the vocals more. So here's a list of my top 5 favorite melodic death metal bands. Number 5. In Flames. Formed in Gothenburg, Sweden by guitarist Jesper Stromblad in 1990, In Flames were one of the pioneers of the melodic death metal genre. With their 2nd through 5th albums, Jester Race, Horacle, Colony, and Clayman are some of the finest records ever made and helped define the genre. Now, I've selected this band solely based on the content of those albums because after Clayman, they would gradually change their style over the next few releases, going from the melodic death metal they helped pioneer to the ever so dreadful style of nu metal. And it would stay like this for the next 20 years. Now in 2023, they released their 14th studio album, Foregone, which was somewhat a return to the form of the pre-Reroute to Remain era, but in my humble opinion, it's still not up to par with the early material. All in all, those early albums are more than enough to grant them a spot on this list. Number 4. Carcass. Another pioneer of the genre, Liverpool's very own Carcass started out as one of the founders of the grindcore genre before recruiting guitarist Michael Amott, who massively impacted their musical style, leading them to invent the subgenre of melodic death metal and contribute arguably the single most important album to this genre, 1993's Heartwork. This album did for melodic death metal what Megadeth's Rust in Peace did for thrash. The mix of death metal vocals with the more traditional Nawabum-style melodies have never really been heard before up to this point, and created a hybrid sound that was akin to taking frontman Chuck Schuldiner from Death and putting him in Iron Maiden. They would disband in 1996 and reform 11 years later in 2007 without original members, drummer Ken Owen and guitarist Michael Amott, the former having dealt with persistent health issues and the latter being busy with his current band, Arch Enemy. However, Bill Steer and Jeff Walker would prove to everyone that Amott's melodic sensibilities that he brought during his time in the band certainly rubbed off on them, as they've gone on to release 2 more albums, 2013's Surgical Steel and 2021's Torn Arteries. Both are really good records, and the band is still active today, touring and playing festivals. Number 3. Scar Symmetry. Formed in Avesta, Sweden by guitarist Per Nilsson, Scar Symmetry would come to prominence with their sophomore album, Pitch Black Progress, released in 2006. Now, this was the album that really got me into this band, as I'm sure was the case for many people. Frontman Christian Alvestam is really talented and is known for utilizing both harsh and clean vocals in his singing style, giving the band a wide range of songwriting dynamics to work with. Now, Alvestam would depart the band shortly after the release of their 3rd album, 2008's Holographic Universe, and just to show you how talented this guy was, the band hired 2 singers to replace him, one each for clean and for harsh vocals. That is one hell of a fucking act to follow when you need 2 singers to replace what one could do so flawlessly. Nevertheless, The new vocalists, Robert Carlson and Lars Palmquist, I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing that correctly, forgive me, Palmquist. Anyway, both of them have done an excellent job of filling in for Alvestam, and after the release of their 2014 album, Phase 1 Neo-Humanity, the first in a trilogy, they released their follow-up album, Phase 2 Zenotaph, in June 2023, after a nearly 10-year hiatus, and the old boys haven't missed a step at all. Number 2, Children of Bodom. Likely one of the most well-known bands in this genre, melodic death metalers Children of Bodom had a career of various ups and downs throughout their storied 25-year tenure as a band. Frontman and lead guitarist Alexei Laiho is regarded as one of the greatest guitar players in the genre and in rock music, period, combining technical proficiency with blistering speed and ultramelodic harmonies. Now, for me personally, I didn't care much for their first album, Something Wicked, but things started to shape up on their second album, Hatebreeder, in the second half of the album, and by the time their third album, Follow the Reaper, came out, Bodom was at their absolute peak, mixing balls-to-the-wall power metal with melodic death metal to create a unique and interestingly recognizable style all their own. Unfortunately, the band was split into two factions in 2020, with half of the members carrying on under the Children of Bodom moniker, and the other half, which included Laiho, would continue under the name Bodom After Midnight. Sadly, Alexei Laiho would pass away in December 2020 at the young age of 41, after succumbing to the effects of a long battle with alcoholism. The world of music truly lost a one-of-a-kind soul, but his legacy will live on for eternity through Bodom's music. Rest in peace, Mr. Laiho. And my number one favorite melodic death metal band is Arch Enemy. Arch Enemy was formed in 1995 by former Carcass guitarist Michael Amott and his brother Christopher Amott. They've had a massively fruitful career spanning nearly 30 years, with a few lineup changes throughout that time. This band was the band that got me into the metal death genre. This is one of the only bands that has consistently kept my interest throughout their entire tenure after changing singers twice. There's not many bands that could do that for me other than maybe Camelot, Angra, Threshold, and a very small handful of other bands. I think that all three singers of Arch Enemy have truly defined their individual tenors with their unique talents, differentiating each era from one another, while still managing to keep a consistent through line and maintaining the overall identity of the band. Let's start with the original singer, Johan Leva. Leva was the singer during the early years of the first era of the band, providing vocals for their first three albums released in the mid to late 90s. Now, although I'm not particularly a fan of their first two albums, 1996's Black Earth and 1998's Stigmata, it was the last album to feature Leva on vocals, 1999's Burning Bridges, that really got me into this band. Burning Bridges is such a good fucking album, and it really felt like the band was finally starting to find their footing. However, 1 year later, Leva would depart the band and be replaced by the phenomenal Angela Gossow, and much to my surprise, their first album with her on vocals, 2000's Wages of Sin, was a fucking masterpiece. Gossow is a goddamn beast on the mic, and coming off a very strong album with Leva, she would carry the band through the next decade and a half until her departure in 2014. And finally, we arrive at the third, final, and current singer, Alissa White Glutes. Glutes grew up on Arch Enemy's music as a teenager, and honestly, the band could not have selected a better replacement for Gossow. Not only could she pull off the brutal, harsh vocals with the same power and clarity as Gossow, but she is also an amazing singer in her own right as far as traditional clean vocals go. When Gossow decided to step back from fronting the band to become their manager, she was the one who suggested Glutes as her replacement to Amat and the rest of the band. Glutes is the full package, and recently, the band has started to incorporate instances of her clean vocals in certain songs, at least from the newer albums. It's a well-known fact that when any band in any genre changes singers, they as well as their fans foray into uncharted territory. Most of the time, it doesn't work and can end up a complete mess, like Annette Olsen replacing Tarja Turunen in Nightwish, and sometimes it happens to work out extraordinarily well, like Tommy Karavik replacing Roy Khan in Camelot. But very rarely does it work out twice after the departure of the OG singer. Arch Enemy were very, very lucky to have 3 successful eras with 3 different singers, and I think that really stands as a testament to the band's musicianship, songwriting ability, and perseverance with their sound. Recently, the original Leva era lineup of the band has reformed as a side project under the name of Black Earth, named after the first Arch Enemy album with Leva, similar to how Black Sabbath reformed the Dio era lineup under the name Heaven and Hell, named after their first album with that lineup. There was even an occasion a few years ago where Leva, Gossow, and Glutes all performed together with the rest of Arch Enemy, covering songs from each era and even duetting on a few together. The guitar work from the Amat brothers is heavily influenced by the extremely melodic style of power metal, more so than any other metal band that I've heard, with the exception of Children of Bodom, of course. Arch Enemy show no signs of stopping, and I anticipate many, many more years of classics from these guys. Easily my #1 favorite melodic death metal band. And that's my list, folks. If you listen to this genre of music, what do you think about this list? Do you agree or disagree with it? And what are your top 5 melodic death metal bands? Let me know in the comments below. And for any of you out there who have never listened to this style of music before, I highly encourage you to check out some of the bands on this list, even if it's just one. You never know, you may end up liking something you never knew if you just broaden your horizons a little bit. I hope you all enjoyed this list, and I'll be back with another video soon. Until next time everyone, be safe, and take care of yourselves and each other.